All right, today we're going to make the hinge, make copies of it, and move them in place. And I'm also going to explain a little bit about how you have to make this build special to work for 3D printing. So first thing we're going to do is, again, if you're closing and reopening Fusion 360, your whole build might be activated. So this time we're going to scroll down and we're going to activate the hinge component. And look down here at your timeline. There's no steps to it yet. That's a good thing. All right, I'm going to zoom into, here I'll snap to a top view using my view cube. And now we're going to create sketch, and I'm going to click this top left cube. And now I'm going to zoom in a lot. I'm going to hit X for construction, R for rectangle, and I'm going to click this top left corner, and I'm going to make this 0.4, tab 0.4, and hit enter. Now I'm going to inactivate construction by hitting X, R for rectangle. Click the corner, drag out. Let's make this, let's see, we want to make it even, 0.4. So 13.6, tab 9.2. And now I have 0.4 millimeters of clearance everywhere. And I'll enter to get that in. And I'm rotating my view just so you can see it. You don't have to do this. Now I'm going to click the bit we just created, E for extrude, and I'm going to dial in -6.6. And then hit to make sure operation is on new body. It should be automatically. And then click OK. Now, I want to fillet this thing. It might be hard to click with the block in the way, but I'll teach you something else about your browser. So come over to your browser, and we've activated and inactivated components, but you can also turn the view of a component on and off by clicking the eyeball. So I'm going to click the eyeball on the block. Now I've turned that off. Now this is cool because I can focus specifically on my hinge. I'm going to hit F for fillet, and I'm going to click these 4 edges. Now, it is 6.6 tall, so I need to make a fillet of radius 3.3. Because 3.3 plus 3.3, you get it. Enter. And there we go. Now we've made a hinge. Let's turn the eyeball for the block back on, and you can see how that's going to fit in there. But we need to do something first. So I'm going to snap to a back view by clicking my view cube. And I want to center this hinge in the inset. So I'm going to hit M for move or copy, and I'm going to click the center of the hinge, click the top arrow. I'm going to dial in -0.2, moving it down 0.2 millimeters, and hit enter. Now, my goal, I'm going to rotate my view so I can show you this. My goal is to make an innie on this side of the hinge, so the outie of the block goes into the innie. And similarly, I'm going to make an outie hinge that goes into the innie on this side. And I want these things to line up perfectly. There's a trick to getting this exactly perfect. So first thing, you're going to click Create Sketch, and I'm going to click this surface. Now, what I want to do is project the geometry of the block onto the hinge. So in order to do that, you're going to use hotkey P for project. Now, I'm going to turn, let's go over to our browser. I'm going to turn off the block. Oh, nope, other way. I'm going to turn off the hinge. So I turned off the eyeball on the hinge, and I'm going to click this circle and this circle. So what I'm doing is projecting this part of the block onto the sketch of our hinge. And I'll click OK on the project tab to project it. Notice it gives you a warning. It says, hey, the object you're creating is not visible. Please toggle it back on. So let's do that. I'm going to come over here and turn the hinge back on. Now take a look at what happened. The circle from the outie is projecting onto our block. So now I know for sure that those two things are going to line up perfectly. Now let's come back over and turn the eyeball for the block off. I'm going to snap to a back view. And now I'm going to hit C for circle. I'm going to click the center here. And you might remember the diameter is 2.8. I'm going to hit enter. And then C for circle. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Click and drag. diameter 2.8. Hit enter. Now I want to extrude all of this inward. If I just try to click things at random, it's going to unselect and deselect. So the way to select multiple things is you hold shift. So I'm going to click this ring, I'm going to press and hold shift, and I'm going to click this circle, this ring, and this circle. And E for extrude, and then I'm going to dial in negative 2.4. And there you go. Look at that. Let's turn the block back on. That looks satisfying, don't you think? I just think that is so cool. All right, let's do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to first create sketch, and then I click the surface that I'm sketching. Now I hit letter P for project, and then I'm going to click the circles that I wish to project. I'm going to rotate my view. There we go. Let's zoom in. Now, again, this hinge is a little bit in my way. I'm going to turn the eyeball off, and I'm going to click this black circle here and this black circle here. And let's do this the proper way this time. I'm going to turn the hinge back on. And now you can see that it's projecting that circle onto that hinge. I'm going to click OK. Now again, let's turn the view of the block off so it doesn't get in my way. And now we're going to sketch and make the two outies here. So I'm going to hit C for circle, click to center, drag, 2.0, right? Yeah, 2. And hit enter. And then C for circle, click to center, and just dial in number 2. And hit enter. Now, this is the only part I'm extruding. So I'm going to press and hold shift, click this, click that, E for extrude, dial in number 2. And let's turn the block back on once more. And you get the idea. Now, the only thing we have left to do is move these hinges into place. And let's do that. Moving the hinges in place is not difficult, but it's tedious and you have to do this perfectly. So pay attention. And this is like the maybe the 13th or 14th time I've done this. I hope I get it right this time. Okay, so now let's zoom out and go to a top-down view. All right, now we're going to click M for move or copy. And I'm going to click the top center here. Now, go over to this right menu and look at this. You see how you have the create copy option? If you start to move it, you lose that ability. So make sure whenever you copy a thing, you click create copy first. Now we're ready to move it. But I need to not only move it, well, let's move it over first. So I'm going to scoot this thing on over. I'm going to scoot it on over. And now watch the increments that it moves in. See how it's moving it in increments of negative 61, negative 62. But if I zoom in a little bit more, now it moves it by increments of 0.5. If I zoom in even more, it'll move it by increments of 0.1. And so what I'm looking for is I want the same distance on the left that I have on the right. And so I have that. So now I've got it centered, but we need to do one more thing. We need to rotate it. And in order to rotate it, you click this circle, y'all. You're going to rotate it 180 degrees or negative 180. And then click OK. See, that wasn't so bad, right? Unless you forget to click create copy like 5 times in a row. Oh, goody. All right, that's one. Let's keep them going. Now, they're going to move this hinge right now down there. So let's do this. M for move or copy. Click the top center. Click create copy first. Now, we're going to rotate it first 90 degrees or negative 90 so that it points this way. And then now I'm just going to drag it approximately into place. I'm going to scoot it over here, move it this way. Again, I'm just clicking the arrows. Let's snap to a top-down view so I can see this perfectly. And there we go. So I want it centered left to right. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. And okay, see, I don't have the same space on the right that I do on the left. So I'm going to drag it over 0.1 millimeters. And there you are. I got the same distance on the left that I do on the right. Now let's do the same thing for top down. probably, I'm going to click this arrow, maybe 0.2 will do it. Let's see. Yes. So again, looking for the same distance on the top that I have on the bottom. Now, last little detail. I'm going to snap, come over to the view cube and snap to a left view. Now, you don't want, I'm going to drag this up. I don't want this hinge centered with concentric circles in the other hinge. We actually want this hinge, there we go, to be flush. So look at the circles. See how they're offset? But now the bottom of the hinge is flush with the bottom of the block. And I'm going to click OK. We want that because of how 3D printing works. So let me show you a completed build where the hinge is centered, and I'll show you the problem. So I'm going to come over to my slicer, and I'm going to look at, so this is the overall view of the build. Now I have the hinges, if you can see it, it's very subtle, but I have these hinges centered, not flush with the bottom. So when I slice it, I'll show you the problem. Here's how the bottom layer prints out. So it prints out the block, makes sense, right? But this is the bottom layer. This is 0.2 millimeters thick. Now look what happens. I don't print out any of the hinge until I go to the next layer up. Now it starts printing out the hinge, and there's a problem with this. It's going to lay out this bead of filament on top of a hot printer bed, and that's going to cause it to stay sticky and probably warp a little bit, and it's going to bunch up and make spaghetti. So we don't want that. In order to avoid that, let's go back to the build. That's why we have it flush with the bottom. This will prevent that from happening. And that's why you want this wiggle room in the hinges that allows you to do this. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. And again, I'm going to make a separate video on this, explaining it in detail using fettuccine, because delicious. Okay, now let's go to a bottom view. Okay, we are going to click M for move or copy, and I'm going to click the bottom center, and I'm going to click create copy first, and I'm going to click and drag this left arrow and zoom in and drag it across. And I'm going to zoom in, looking for this space, and it should be negative 40.8, by the way. And that's it. I don't have to center it in any other way because it's already set in the other planes. And again, this one's flush on the bottom too. All right, one more hinge to move into place before we do some mirroring. So let's go to a top view, and I'm going to click move or copy, and I'm going to click the top center of this cube. Click create copy first, or you'll have to redo this again, and we don't want to do that. Okay, so I'm going to click this circle, rotate it. Now, one more rotation. I'm going to change my view to the back view, and I'm also going to, so I rotated it negative 90 in the top down plane, and now I'm going to rotate it negative 90 in this plane. So you can see why, because I'm getting this thing set up to line up with that. So now let's start dragging it into place. I'm going to click this arrow and drag it across. Snap to a left view. Drag it down this way. All right. Now, I'm just kind of doing multiple things at once. You don't have to follow my order. But I kind of like approximately get it in place in multiple planes before I get it specifically. Now, again, super important details. First of all, let's center it left to right. That looks good. Now, I actually want this one flush with the outside as well. I'm not 100% sure why it prints out better this way. Again, cue the image of all my failed prints. Oh. Okay, so it does print better if you leave more space. So I print it out like this. So again, flush with the outside just like it was, but this doesn't have anything to do with those layers, as I said. This is something different. Now, one other important thing. I'm going to snap to a left view. Oh, look, by the way, I've lost track of where I'm at. All you have to do if you ever get stuck is double click the center mouse button. Snaps you right in place. Pretty cool. Okay, now, this is going to seem weird, but here I want it centered. top down. So I'll zoom in a little bit more so I can see what I'm doing. Looks like 0.1 down more. There we go. So now I'm going to click OK, and let's show you what this looks like. So again, I have it centered left to right. I have this side flush with the outside of the cube. But top down, I have it centered. And you might say, well, wait a minute, that's contradictory. That this thing is going to be printing floating in midair. And you're kind of right. But let me explain what I think is occurring. So you don't have to do this unless you want to follow along. But I'm going to activate my overall build like this. So I did that in my browser tab. And I'm going to go up here to Inspect. I'm going to scroll down to Section Analysis. And I'm going to click just any top surface here. And now, watch this. I'm going to drag down, and you can see the layers that this thing is made of, which is pretty cool. And I'm going to zoom in a lot more, and watch this. So the way it's going to work is it's going to print out all this stuff, then it's going to start printing out the bottom nib. Here, I'll zoom in more so I move by increments of point. So if I'm printing with 0.2 millimeter layer thickness, it's going to print out this, and then it's going to print out this part of the nib. Move this out of the way. And I'll zoom in a little bit more. And then it's going to print out another layer of the nib before it even starts printing the hinge. And then now I'll move up. So you might say, well, wait a minute. This hinge is going to be printing literally in thin air on top of nothing. How does this work? Here's what I think happens. It will still print out this bottom layer, but it only falls a small distance before it hits the plastic underneath. So it makes the bottom layer, falls to the plastic, sits on top of it, but then when it prints out the next layer on top of that, so I'll zoom out and show you, that next layer is able to find the previous layer. It sticks to it, and now it's basically able to keep printing it on top. If you don't leave this space, and I'll click cancel to get out of that. If you don't leave this space, what will happen is this plastic will print right on top of this plastic. So even if you leave just 0.2 millimeter space, it still didn't work for me. It fused. I had to leave 2 layers of space until it worked. And that's just purely through trial and error. All right, I'm going to go back down and activate my hinge. And again, I'll make a separate video explaining this in a little bit more detail. Ooh, okay, there's only like one more major thing to do. We're going to mirror all these 3 hinges this way and then move them slightly. So I'll show you what I mean. So we're going to click Create, scroll down to Mirror. And then I'm going to click this hinge and the other 2 hinges. And now I'm going to rotate around and pay attention to this. Now that I have my 3 objects selected, I'm going to click Mirror Plane. And I'm going to click this surface here. So again, I'm on the same side. And look what's going to happen. It's going to obviously mirror them across, but I need a little bit more space. That's no big deal. Make sure Operation is set to New Body. Click OK. Now, we're going to do the following. We just got to move these all 0.4 millimeters that way. So I'm going to hit M for Move or Copy. And I'm going to click the top center of this cube. Then I'm going to click, or that hinge, and I'm going to click this hinge. And then I'm going to click this hinge. And then I'm going to click this arrow. And I'm going to dial in 0.4. And there you go. I've perfectly mirrored the left side to the right side. All right. In the next video, I'm going to teach you how to customize your cube. If you want to put some cool art on it, or maybe you want to put your initials on this, we could do that. And I'll show you how to 3D print this, because I think a lot of people do 3D printing from Fusion 360 the wrong way. I'll show you the right way to do it. See you in the next one.